no one is bigger than the club. This is the mantra which Sir Alex Ferguson religiously lived by during his unforgettable, unrepeatable and unprecedentedly successful 27 years at Man United. This maxim was used to keep superstar egos and generational talents in check at the training ground, in the dressing room and on the pitch. It was a reminder to the playing staff that no matter how big you thought you were representing Man United, and that is something that no one individual can ever eclipse. What this meant was that whenever someone started to get too big for their boots, they were ostracised and promptly sold by Sir Alex. And after this video, you may be wondering whether there was one man who had gotten bigger than the club, and this was the gaffer himself. Here are 4 players who Ferguson unceremoniously and spectacularly told to sling their hook.
Knocking it back for Ince, smashing goal!
Tireless midfield machine Paul Ince joined Man United in deeply controversial and contemptuous circumstances. Perpetually linked with Man U, West Ham player Ince was pictured in a United shirt long before the transfer ever went through, a snap which was sensationally published in the Daily Express to the outrage of Hammers fans. The 6 years he spent at the Red Devils saw him taunted with boos and chants of Judas whenever he returned to the Boleyn ground. Ince had arrived at United asking to be called the nickname which he had apparently gone by at West Ham, the Governor, and you just know this didn't sit well with Fergie. Although he had established himself as a key player for United and won 2 league titles and 2 FA Cups among other honours while at Old Trafford, he never enjoyed a rosy relationship with Sir Alex. On TalkSport, Ince opened up about one time Ferguson had given him the infamous hairdryer treatment after the English midfielder had tried to go on a mazy run up the pitch against Norwich in the dying embers, lost the ball, allowing the opposition to go up the pitch and nearly score. Ferguson comes into the changing room and goes absolutely ballistic at me, saying, "Who do you think you are? You ain't no Maradona or Pele." I said, "Gaffer, what are you on about?" He said, "You've lost the ball in the 92nd minute and they could have scored." I said, "But they didn't, Gaffer, and we won 3-1. He starts coming up to me in my face and I'm thinking I'm not having this, so I stand up, we are face to face, and he is shouting, and as he is shouting I've got spit going in my eye. I keep trying to talk back to him, but every time I open my mouth the spit goes in, so I thought I'd keep my mouth shut. Brian Kidd stepped in between the two of us and we didn't speak for 5 days. We played head tennis on the Thursday and he was the referee. It gets to 9-9. Steve Bruce heads the ball up in the air and I do an overhead kick. It hits the line to win the game. Sir Alex goes out. Because we weren't speaking at the time, I couldn't say anything. I looked at him, he said, "Out. Game's over, they won." As I walked away, he said, "There's only one governor round here, Ince, and it ain't you." A few years after that in 94, the relationship went even further down the toilet when Fergie gave Ince a savage tongue lashing during half-time of an eventual 4-0 Champions League defeat to Barca. "You're a fucking bottler, Ince. You can't handle the stage, can you? You're a fucking bottler." After these incidents and the emergence of Beckham and Butt from the academy, Ince was living on borrowed time. And so it was that in 1995, Ferguson went behind the player's back and sold them to Inter Milan for 7.5 million, a decision which infuriated the fans as they perceived it was done only because of personal beef rather than any sporting reasons. Fergie's disrespect of Ince wasn't quite done, as a Granada television camera caught Fergie once again ripping into his former player.
If he tries to bully you, fucking enjoy it. Don't let him attempt to bully you, right? You just make sure you're ready for him tomorrow. And that's all you need to worry about him. It's fucking big time Charlie bit.
The Big Time Charlie moniker would haunt Ince for the remainder of his career. Him and Sir Alex apparently enjoy a more respectful and pleasant relationship nowadays though.
Андреа Пірло виконує навісну передачу. Удар! М'яч у сітці 1-0. Jaap Stam відзначається.
Was this one time when Fergie really got it wrong? Towering Dutch defender Stam was an utter beast of a player and a wildly popular figure amongst the fans, winning 3 Premier Leagues, an FA Cup and a Champions League during his 3 seasons at United. However, he made, in Ferguson's eyes, an unforgivable mistake when he made some bombshell revelations in his autobiography Head to Head, which was serialised in the Mirror. He made some quite frankly ill-advised admissions about United players, calling the Neville brothers whingers and claiming that they were known in the dressing room as busy cunts, as well as stating that Beckham would never appear on Mastermind. Well, that one isn't so much of a bombshell, to be honest. The most egregious comments in the book, according to the gaffer, were those regarding Stam's transfer to United from PSV, in which he claimed Sir Alex tapped him up and illegally approached him without the permission of the Dutch giants. So Jaap was papped to Lazio for 16.5 million in 2001. There is some confusion around Sir Alex's motivations and whether it was actually because he was affronted by the Dutchman's book, or that after some analysis analysis of the defender's tackling stats, he had come to the conclusion that the Rock of Campen was beginning to crumble. Whatever the real reason may be, Sir Alex looked back on his decision to sell Stam as a blunder, saying this in 2007. At the time, he had just come back from an Achilles injury, and we thought he had just lost a little bit. We got the offer from Lazio, 16.5 million for a centre-back who was 29. It was an offer I couldn't refuse, but in playing terms, it was a mistake. He's still playing for Ajax at a really good level.
Sheringham, Beckham, first blood to Manchester United. David Beckham.
This surely must be the highest profile example of Sir Alex's ruthless nature. Class of 92 graduate Beckham was a bona fide superstar. We're talking Beatles level of fame here, and one of the very best players on the earth by the time his relationship with Fergie started to go the same way as many before him had, and countless after would. As we entered the new millennium, Fergie started to take the look of a jilted lover as he moaned about Beckham's headline-grabbing A-list marriage to Posh Spice. There was one incident where David asked for training off to look after his sick son, only for Victoria to be pictured that very evening at London Fashion Week, with the traditional Ferguson saying that she should have been looking after the boy so that Beckham could train rather than swanning around at catwalk shows. Beckham was fined 2 weeks' wages and dropped for a crunch tie against Leeds. He was never a problem until he got married, lamented Ferguson in his autobiography. Despite these rifts, Beck signed a contract extension in May 2002, making him the world's highest paid player after an outstanding season which was unfortunately cut short by injury. Then came an incident that rocked the football world. Seriously, my recollections of this as a 12-year-old were that this was a major and momentous event in history, a cultural turning point. The hype from this was inescapable. After being dumped out of the FA Cup by Arsenal, Beckham was pictured with stitches on a cut above his eye. The scoop was that Fergie had thrown or kicked a boot at the player in a rage. Like I said, Britain was rocked by this event, seriously. It all came out later that it was just an accident, as Beckham told the Mirror. That was blown up out of all proportion. I'd made a couple of mistakes during the game and he came into the dressing room and a few harsh words were exchanged. He started to walk over to me and he kicked out at a pile of clothes on the floor. Out came this boot, and then I quickly realised how accurate his kick had been as it struck me on the head. But there weren't any hard feelings. It was a complete freak accident. As far as we were concerned, it was forgotten straight away within the club, but the incident made the papers, which meant that people started to speculate about our relationship. A year after that, he became the latest Galactico, joining Real Madrid in a €37 million deal.
Nistelrooy, now it's Giggs again, he might be in here. Ryan Giggs, and Van Nistelrooy, it's 3-0.
Box in the box Ruud was a deadly goal-mouth poacher for United, banging them in at a frightening rate, scoring 150 goals in just 219 appearances in all competitions. Van the Man broke records and won titles with the Red Devils, winning the hearts of the supporters and securing his place in Man United legend. The departure of Beckham and the arrival of a young Cristiano Ronaldo are when everything began to fall apart for Ruud. Van Nistelrooy had become accustomed to the inch-perfect passes of Beck's and was frustrated at the developing Ronaldo's tendency to take on his man rather than make the pass to the striker. He would frequently moan about his teammate to Fergie and assistant manager Carlos Queiroz. Then, Ruud made the mistake of thinking he could question the gaffer's decisions, going mental at him after he left him on the bench for the 06 League Cup final, electing instead to sub on new signings Evra and Vidic, as Fergie claimed he wanted to give them a taste of winning with United. This was classic Fergie, to be honest. Remarkably, Ruud launched into a touchline tirade against his manager, reportedly calling him a Scottish pig. This was effectively the end for Ruud, but the Dutchman decided to blow it all up, making one of the most ill-advised jokes in sporting history. During a training ground spat with Ronaldo, Ruud sneered at him, "What are you gonna do, complain to your daddy?" This was a reference to Ronaldo's close relationship with Portuguese coach Carlos Queiroz. However, this was not an appropriate time for Ruud to be making this remark, Ronaldo's father Jose having died just 8 months previously. Van Nistelrooy's jibe reportedly caused Ronaldo to burst into tears. Big Ruud was causing problems for Fergie, so he had to go, and he followed his mate Beckham to the Bernabeu for £14 million. The Dutch striker was far from past his best at that point and went on to score loads of goals for Madrid, while United struggled somewhat in front of goal for a spell. But Fergie needed a harmonious and together team, and Ruud was disrupting that. Now look, before you start slagging me off for not including Mr. Man United Roy Keane in this video, my understanding of the situation is that he told Sir Alex to fuck off, not the other way around, and in fact, Roy is still telling him to fuck off to this day. So to sum up, Fergie ruled United with an iron fist and had to make some difficult decisions for the good of the club, and while it certainly didn't hurt the trophy cabinet, you could argue that by the end of his reign, Fergie had become what he had fought against his whole career, too big for the club.